Since launch, I swapped out my old S23 Ultra for the S24. And in that time, I've had a chance to extensively test out the features and think about all the differences between the two devices. So in this video, I want to go over what features are neat party tricks, what I've been using daily, and what I think about it as a day-to-day phone. So let's talk about it. This was a bit of a tricky review to do, mainly because this time around, Samsung has heavily focused on the software elements. A lot of the features that were exclusive at launch of the S24 have now come to the older phones via software update, which is a very admirable thing for Samsung to do. As a result, I thought I'd split this review into three distinct parts. Firstly, talking about the hardware and any of the changes. Secondly, the software features, including Galaxy AI. And lastly, I'll look at the camera system. Let's begin with the hardware. If you didn't have two different colored phones, it would be very hard to tell the S24 apart from the S23 Ultra. They share a very similar design language that's first started with the S22 Ultra. This time around, the material of the rails has changed from aluminium onto titanium. The cutout of the speaker grill at the bottom, which has gone from a series of holes to one neat sliver. The other major difference from the outside is that there is no longer a curved screen. This means that the new S24 does feel a little bit boxier in my hands, but it does also mean that you have a flat surface to write on. This is especially nice if you are a heavy S Pen user like myself. In the past, it was very easy to roll off the edge, especially if you're editing or writing near there. Now it is a lot more natural. If you're viewing content in full screen, the edges also don't look distorted like they used to. The other added bonus is that if you're a screen protector person like myself, it is far easier to put a flat one on as compared to the curved ones. The screen itself is also different from last year with a higher peak brightness, as well as this new anti-reflective coating, which I think is one of the most underrated features. Around the back, there is the same camera layout, but this time around the 10x telephoto lens has switched out for a 5x 50 megapixel sensor. I do really like this new titanium colorway that the S24 series also comes in. On the inside, the handset is powered by the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor as compared to the Gen 2, as well as having a larger vapor chamber so that the phone remains cooler for longer. Talking about the hardware from an everyday use point of view, the S24 and the S23 Ultra are roughly the same dimensions, and the S24 just feels a little bit bulkier to me. There is meant to be a weight difference, but it's not something that's particularly noticeable. In terms of battery life, that remains unchanged from last year. And though the S24 used to last a little bit longer than before, might just be because it's a newer battery with no degradation. I never really had any complaints about the battery life with the S23 Ultra. It lasted me an entire day, and the same thing continues with the S24 as well. This is also the same for any performance. I never noticed any significant lag between the S23 and the S24 also continues that. I'm not much of a mobile gamer, but I do use it quite a lot for editing photos and videos, and it has never slowed down even with 4K footage. Now, the S24 Ultra launched with One UI 6.1, and it came with a whole host of features that are under the umbrella term of Galaxy AI, a very unique feature called Circle to Search. This is actually something powered by Google, which allows you to activate the feature by holding down the home button and then circling anything on screen to perform a Google search. In a way, it's a new advanced way of summoning Google Lens, which has been a feature that's been there for a long time, but it has far lower friction now that it's always available. One UI obviously has all the older customization features, including a new AI-powered wallpaper generator. It allows you to select from several different prompts and customize your background wallpaper anytime you want. This segues quite nicely into the other AI features embedded in the device. These can be broadly grouped into Communication Assist, Productivity Assist, and Creativity Assist. On the Communication Assist front, there is now AI built into the keyboard itself, so you can type out a message and it can change the tone to whatever you want it to say. Call Assist has a function called Text Call. Basically, it answers any of your phone calls with an AI-generated voice and transcribes anything that the other person is saying into text so that you can respond. This is particularly useful in screening out scam calls. One of the newest features built in is the ability to answer a call when someone else is speaking in a different language and have the call translated whilst you're on there. I haven't used this feature in real life, but in my brief testing, it works okay. It does need the other person to speak in short sentences with distinct pauses so it knows when to stop and process the translation. If you're in a bind, it'll get you out of trouble, but it is not the most natural conversation. The translation feature is also built into the interpreter app. The feature is generally okay, but again, it requires you to speak in short little sentences. Otherwise, it gets a little bit confused as to when to stop listening and start translating. The good thing about these features is that these can be run locally on the device and don't need an internet connection. On the productivity assist features, the main focus is on summarization. Both Samsung Internet, Samsung Notes, and other areas now have a summarize button, so you can look at a long web page or article and ask Galaxy AI to summarize it for you. On the creative AI front, there is now a generative edit button built in Gallery app. So if you've taken a photo and it's been slightly askew, you can now straighten it all out and Galaxy AI will fill in the edges, so without you having to necessarily crop in to the photo. The onboard AI is also very handy in selecting subjects in the photo, which you can then move around or resize as you see fit. You can also just erase things in the photo and generative AI will fill the blanks in. Now, the generative parts do require an internet connection and don't happen on device, so that is something to be aware of. One thing I wanted to test between the S24 and the S23 is there a difference in speed between the AI features on the new handset versus the old one? Now, with the generative fill, because it is done remotely and downloaded, I found that there was no difference in speed. But surprisingly, even after downloading the language packs, because you are doing short sentences, there doesn't seem to be any real-world difference between using the S23 and the S24. That's not to say that the processor doesn't have any changes between the S23 and the S24. I took this little clip at an 8K resolution of my cat and color graded it and tried to export it. As you can see, the S24 does perform better than the S23 series. Now, onto the cameras. As I mentioned, the S23 and the S24 share most of the camera hardware between the two phones. However, the 5x telephoto lens that's 50 megapixel in resolution is the new addition. The moment I started using the camera system, I did notice that the images out of the S24 Ultra had a different color science to it as compared to the S23 series. Just have a look at these two images side by side. The S23 appears a lot more contrasty and a little bit hypersaturated, where the S24, to me anyway, appears a lot more natural. The colors are a lot smoother, and I personally actually find the images from the S24 much more pleasing. Looking at the 3x telephoto lens, I personally think there is a little bit more detail on the S24 Ultra front, and it looks a little less over-sharpened than before. I manually zoomed the S23 Ultra to 5x just to compare with the 5x lens, and as expected, the optical 5x lens is much better quality. Then we had to test both cameras on 10x mode. There is a little bit less detail on the S24 Ultra, but I surprisingly would say that this is very usable. I then zoomed into the 30x and then the 100x, and they were usable at up to 30x, but then after that, it becomes very, very filled with artifacts. In nightography mode, the situation couldn't be more different. The S24 is hands down a superior camera to the S23 Ultra, both in photos and videos. Just have a look at the samples. In summary, I think that though the differences aren't major between the S23 and the S24, the addition of the new screen, the addition of the new camera hardware, and the different processing does make the S24 Ultra a compelling upgrade. I'm very happy I upgraded. Did you get yourself one? And if so, are you happy with it? Let me know in the comments below. I do also admire the fact that Samsung has upgraded the software to 7 years now for updates, as well as improving the Galaxy AI features and bringing it to the older handsets so they have a useful longer life as well. So that's it for this video. If you'd like to see more tech reviews, check out the following one.